Dragon Ball Super family. I'm here with today's champion of Top Cut Events DBS Masters Online Regionals, Robert Rizzi. Man, how do you feel about the event today?
I'm in a good spot about it. It was fun. I wanted to make something just completely unique and fun and just aggressive. I feel like the format is solved, and control players have a huge advantage in this format. And so I just really wanted to punish them, and I wanted it to be like my hope was I wouldn't play a lot of aggressive players because then I would lose. So my hope was that every round I was hoping against playing against players who've kind of figured out the meta, and then I could just kind of like, as they whittle down my hand and they think they're gaining advantage, I could just be like, and I anyway, with these shenanigans, and then they'd be like, yeah, no, that's a thing. I forgot about that card, and it worked. So that was cool. Because yeah, it worked. There was one, I will say, the only match I was kind of sad about was my round 3 opponent was very great. He was playing, I think it was Trunks or the Arrival deck, and I think it was that one or one of the other ones, whichever deck it was. One of my green opponents could have won, and he had plenty of ways to do it, but he just sat in the tank apparently like for 5 minutes, and I was just like waiting to see what's happening, and eventually he's like, yeah, we're gonna go for it, and then he's like, Parunga, tap all your energy, make you discard, do all this stuff, and by the time he actually did it all, he was like 8-drop swings, and I have, effectively I have 6 life still at this point, and he's at like 2. And then like as the 8 drops beginning to swing, they're like time and round and time and overtime. And he was like, oh, yeah, I lose. I was like, okay. And then we figured out the math, and like afterwards he would have won. Like he could have made me discard my whole hand with Gogeta, all the success, like all the tricks he had. And he had plenty of Z energy. So he would have won had he just done it all, as opposed to think about doing it then doing it. So that part made it feel a little bit hollow, but hey, a win still feels good when you get it. And so even if I would have only top 8'd, I would have been happy with the deck and its performance.
Yeah, I mean, who's to say that your style and your deck build isn't, or is what made him go into the tank so hard? But speaking about that matchup uniquely, what were some of your other matchups today?
So I played 3 red Q that I can remember, at least 2 or 3 of the green, and then 1 Android 21. And the Android 21, the only reason it was quote unquote easy, for lack of a better term, was literally just the Gotenks Unison. As somebody, I think it was DeCosta, I saw it in his board or whoever's board it was. And then I was like, oh yeah, I can grab their SCR. Like that seems, yeah, let's just put in 2. And then I played it versus him, and he didn't have the SCR. But then because I played 1 Gotenks, and I only ran 2, but it happened that I had both, right? Like I just had 2. He used an effect, and he let him look. And he's like, well, you've already used your Gotenks. You probably don't have a second. And he grabbed it, and I like, there was no poker face. Like I apparently wasn't recording properly. I was recording my deck planet with my audio. So I have audio for all my matches, but had there been a video, it would have just been me being like, so because I definitely was like, oh no, I have the Gotenks, and I am going to rip that out of your hand.
Right.
Like you floodgate, I steal your SCR, your turn. So that was cool. But yeah, the Kid Q was probably the I'd say the more easy matches for the SCR. Like I think the SCR made me win those matches. And then the reason I won in the green matchups was just the tempo of my playstyle. I don't think any of my red yellow cards were relevant for those, but the SCR choice was 100%. I think where we're at right now is you retire Vegito, only because everybody runs so many negates now that are actual like spells, or sorry, in this game they're extras. And so because we have so many of those mechanics anyway, and everyone knows to hold one for Vegito, it doesn't do what you want to do, Whereas, turn 3, in my opinion, is where Kid Q's the weakest, right? If your opponent gets a really big board, how does Kid Q survive and why everything? And so every time I was behind, or they would use an explosive dance, I could just be like, you know what? Hey, SCR, I'm back in the game. And for 0 energy, it feels fantastic.
Yeah, that's actually really sound logic. It definitely covers one of the deck's biggest weaknesses while refilling your hand, which is another weakness for the deck, actually.
Yeah, and that was probably the other part, was like very frequently my opponents would against green, it was a phenomenal SCR, because I think we're at the point don't get me wrong. I think out of 4 out of 7 is my guess. I played the SCR, right? So it's half my game. So you can't guarantee it every game. But we're getting to a point now where you draw a huge amount of your deck. You know, you have like 20 cards left at the end. There's a good chance you're going to get your SCR. You know, we see this a lot on the stream and stuff as well. And what's nice about it is if you get this SCR, you can like run into the Z extra floodgate and just give yourself a bunch of Z energy and then just be like, hey, free 40k, and then refill my whole hand of all those cards I didn't want. And your opponent's like, cool, how much Z energy do you have? And you're like 12, you know, or 6, or
Yeah.
and then your opponent's like, cool, I did nothing and I used up, 3 cards from my hand. And
Yeah.
you're like, I know. And like that's usually how I came back from games was against green, was when they casted that and I had the SCR, I caught up. Pretty what's the word? Religiously, it was like that exact, thing. So it was cool.
All right, cool. Let's go over your list, specifically about some of the changes you made compared to other popular lists today. We noticed you only played well, let's start with the TNs. You played all 4 copies of TN, a card that's like pretty unpopular today. How'd you feel about it?
I love it. Once again, this is the aggressive play style, right?
Hmm.
So on 3 energy, I don't want to play a unison. I really want, if I'm going first, I would love every time I'm going first for my opponent to have tapped out in a perfect world. And then I start my turn with a TN. I play a, Mutaito or something. I get a 15k, a 30k swing. I'm not even critting that 30k swing. I just want 2 swings.
Yeah.
And then I want to summon my 5-drop and then just go all the way aggressive, be completely tapped out. And then, maybe even play my SER with no draw ability, just hey, a free 40k. And so that doesn't happen very frequently. My opponents don't tap out. And so I like that on turn 3, I can just be like, hey, a TN, play a 30k to set up a future turn with a Chaozu, but like a little bit of aggression, a little bit of poking, all that stuff. But like I feel like the turn 2 tempo isn't enough in the deck. And I hate playing this unison. I only like to play, where is he? I only like to play this baby on turn 3. I cited this in every game, so clearly it should have been main. But I only like to play that if they floodgate me. So I don't like to just pass turn, draw a card, pass turn, draw a card. Like I want to play Dragon Ball. I want to beat the crap out of each other.
Yeah. Fight like they do in the show. That's fair. Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense about the TN. Let's talk about the 4 1-drop starters you played. Did you ever feel like you missed a 1-drop between the 2 launches and the 2 Bulmas?
So this is what I was starting to talk about before we, if I was going to make my own video, I probably would just focus on like the red yellow didn't work. In large part because so in all the mirrors, I was always behind. Against Raymond, I think it was, I actually paid 1 and played Chaozu so I could play my 30k on turn 1. And he goes, cool. And then he laughed and I go, what? And he goes, read your card. And I was like, what? And
Oh
then like I
no.
read it. And I was like, well, that's fine. I was just gonna do it anyway. And then so like I just had a Chaozu because like I just like that was the first time I tried something on turn 1. And then like, with this deck, you're always at you're always at 4 life. Well, starting turn 2, right?
Right.
And so it's just one of those things where I was like, okay, cool. Like nothing I can do about it. And so yeah, so that was it. And so yeah, like had I not had the red yellow, I could have done what they always did because they'd always play like a 1-drop, look at your top 5, and then combo the card so they wouldn't get behind by doing it. But I was always going neg on turn 1 to guarantee I had the Z energy to awaken on 2. And then if they brawl lead, I was like 2 or 3 more cards behind. Like I was literally backpedaling the entire tournament against other red Q decks.
Mm.
And that felt bad. And we talked about it. Like each of them could have won had they just continued to be aggressive, but they all at some point were like, oh, he's just taking a lot of damage. He's trying to build his hand. But nope, I was dead. They just didn't expect me to they just didn't think they could push the rest, but they totally could have because my hand was full of almighties and 10Ks that I couldn't use. And I was just like, I made mistakes.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's a perfect segue. Let's talk about the Almighties and these red, yellow, looks to be warp lands, right? For the
Yes.
players who are definitely going to try this build out, how would you suggest they utilize this? What turn? How's it work?
So I don't know how to say this in a positive way, so I don't know. But I would say is you have to be like if you're a Jared Lopez type who can figure it out, he's got a lot of different like sequences and you have it figured out, the card's fantastic, right? You can fit it in a mono red build. I think you would run, the requirement of it is just you have to have a red and a yellow battle card or just a card in general in your drop. And if you do, you can warp them and now effectively get a red yellow energy, right?
Yeah.
And then as a result, it lets you have access to Almighty. I probably would say you have to cut some amount of these, and then you're really just hoping to get one Almighty in your hand, one of these, and then an ape in your hand so you can use the effect to finally kill your opponent when like when they want a floodgate or do anything like that. Because the idea was that in the mirror, I would frequently then, like when they would go to explosive dance, I would be like, haha, Almighty. But what I didn't really consider was that generally in the mirror, because of my build and how clunky it was, I was already backpedaling. So I didn't like if they explosive danced me, it didn't matter. I only had 2 battle cards in play. Like I never had a big board. Um, so it didn't do what I wanted it to do against like one opponent. It did work, and I was like, haha, explosive, but it felt terrible to Almighty. Because then you don't have a way to untap, right? Like you don't have any of this utility. So I really struggled with it. And I'd say the bigger deal that was good about it was it made opponents afraid of Almighty. And so they didn't use negates and they used other effects, which allowed me to go to combo. And then I could use that energy later in the turn. So it was like an accidental fear effect.
That's actually really cool. Yeah, and then you're comfortable comboing because you're going to draw up to 7 once your hand
Yeah,
depletes.
yeah. Knowing that I have this SCR really, man, this SCR is in a sweet spot, and it was amazing. Is I didn't know it had deflect because I just made this deck on Wednesday, like to finally, I haven't got to play Son Goku, besides the first event we did, and I didn't like it, and so I didn't know it had deflect. And then my opponent was like, it costs less than 7, and he went to start to like Kamehameha something, and he's like, does it have deflect? And I'm like, it does indeed. And that was really nice because I was like, oh, thank God I didn't think about that. Like this can get counterplayed really easily, but it can't. So yay! Thank you, Bandai, for giving me deflect.
That is actually really cool. So, some other things in your deck list so far in the main deck stand out. 2 overruns. First, tell us how you felt about the 2 overruns and why you chose Mira.
I did not cast a single Vegeta throughout the tournament, to my knowledge. So I say that I still like him, but I liked him because he was a 30K, and I just comboed him away usually for explosive dance. Mira, I believe, won me 4. I want to say 4 out of my 7 games.
Wow.
Well, so this is the cool part about if you want to be red yellow. I think somebody who's better than I am at deck building could easily take this list, figure out the ratios, make it better, right? Like this is the drunk aggro version, right? You could make this into a regularly good deck. Like I don't know if you can afford the omens and other stuff. Like I was a little too greedy, right? But in an aggressive style, it worked. In a control style, it wouldn't work, right? But one thing that I loved doing was the dream hand, which was, turn 1 charge a red yellow. Later on, we'll warp a red yellow as well. So I have 2 red yellow available. And then when they were at 2 life specifically, I would have the Almighty sitting back for the negate. If they could go to like play a negate, and I would play Mira for 1. And when they're at 2 life, and then I'd be like swing. And Mira, if you guys don't know, it's a very old card. It gains 5K for every card you have in your warp. So, average turn 4, you have like 7 to 13 cards in your drop. Like you put 2 there anyway with your leader ability, usually in a game. Any extras go to the drop, so on and so forth. But it gets pretty stacked, And because we are purposely dumping our hand and using this Apex, there's even more opportunity for it. So you've got maybe an 80K power at minimum, 70K. That's just swinging. And no one ever combos out a 70K when it's single strike, right?
Yeah.
It would be your whole hand. And then what you do, which is really nice, is you use that 1 remaining red yellow that you have.
Oh, that's cool.
And you play Oolong. And Oolong copies Mira, and your Oolong becomes 70K and swings. And your opponent goes, that's so stupid. And I was just like, it is. and I apologize. Because it is such a dumb, like, it's such a dumb. I think I actually requested when, what was it like? There was like a, like a Bandai like meet and greet thing. One of the events we were at where like you got to talk to like reps and stuff or like recommendations type thing. And whenever Oolong came out was when we were doing it. I was like, you got to address Oolong. It's so stupid that your Oolong can become the power of an SER. Like you shouldn't. Like if you want to make it do something, make it up during your opponent's turn. Like that's like don't make him actually a 40k. Make him like a 40k blocker or do something like that. And they didn't listen. They just ignored me as they should because like who am I to tell them what they should do for their game? But so it felt nice to abuse the card that I tried to get them to change. And so one time I did get to do that. But only so you got to figure 7 rounds. One time I got to go Mira into Oolong to kill them because most of the time when I would just Mira, they would just immediately like they would usually be at 1 at that point because I'd be very aggressive on the swing before that with like a Son Goku, and they'd go to 1 and they'd be like, sure, I'll go to 1. How many cards in your hand? I'd be like 3, and they'd be like 3. That's a weird number, sure. And I would literally just have the energy for Almighty. I would have the yellow card in my hand, and I would have the Mira. And then obviously that's effectively a guaranteed victory, right? Because they can't negate it because I'll counter it. And he's just going to smack face. So that was fun. That part, I really like the Mira. Mira, in my opinion, is the missing part of Kidku. And I think, I hate to say it, you're going to see a lot of people playing Mira again. Because now we're in this format where you do kind of like, you have to take life. You have to, you have to testing. You kind of get in this weird spot where you expect your opponent to combo out. And Mira is only a 30k for Explosive Dance because it gains its ability after the effect. So it's not even that expensive.
That's a good point. Yeah. I mean, that's like an old yellow finisher combo, and you snuck it into a red deck, which is really tricky, actually. No, it's really hard to see that coming. Even if they saw
Yeah.
the mirror, like they're never gonna expect the Oolong. Like that's so cool.
Yeah, and that's what I figure is like, it's not where you're at. Like I said, this was meant to beat the smart people. This was not meant to beat, just everybody out there. Like most, I would say, just good regular players, they're not going to be thinking about 7 steps ahead. They're just going to be battling, and they would have beat the crap out of me. But a really good player, they're like, oh, you only have 3 cards in hand? Oh, sure, I'll take it. And then, Mira, but, that was it. I just wanted to trap them a little bit.
That's really cool. So let's take a look at your Z deck, see what we got new here.
So 4TN
Mm-hmm.
was definitely it, and then Oolong was the clever part. I think only once I used this Z battle card, and almost every game I did use the other 10x Kamehameha.
Yeah. Did you
So that was
ever go into the Defender of Life?
no. There was one opportunity that I considered it, and that was my opponent. I couldn't tell where his life was at, and we were about to be in time, and I thought he was at 4, so I was about to go into it. And then as I was preparing the Z energy for it, I clarified with him, like I think I was playing against my yellow opponent, and he was like, "No, I only have 3 life," and I was at 3 life. So I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, then I'll just pay the 1, and I'll bring out this guy, and then KO your battle card, and now I have another body that can, swing and do all the things I want. And it's only 1 energy."
Mm-hmm.
I thought Defender of Life would matter, not once, not a single time.
That's cool though. I mean, that's a good thing. That means you didn't go to time very high health. So we'll let's scroll
No,
down to
no,
this.
my opponents did not. Yeah, they were always my opponents were always low life in time, and usually in their final turn, I would like take a lot of damage.
That makes sense. All right, let's take a look at that side deck and see what we did here. So you said the babies came in every matchup, and
Yep.
then did the Boars make a difference in the green matchup?
They were super relevant and super great, and also super terrible because of the terrible card that gives me PTSD, Koitsukai,
Ah,
which I'm not running because I can't screw it up if I don't run it.
I guess that's one
That's
way to
right.
approach it. Yeah, no horse to
Um,
jump back onto there.
yeah,
All right, well,
but so that
yeah.
that was it was always interesting because frequently I would keep up 2 energy, 1 for Explosive Dance and 1 for Deborah. Then they would Coit, which would slow down their turn because now they can't do as much aggression. Then they would swing. I would of course have to discard a card to their effect. I would discard something else like an ape, which felt really good to have these apes in general because then next turn I could draw cards. And then I would Explosive Dance, and usually their turns would be pretty much done. Like green doesn't have a lot of big, energy, and I'm still at a high life total, so they're not looking to get rid of all their Z energy just for like another attack that's not going to kill me. Um, and then the next turn, they would usually do more discard because they'd use their Coit. I would then be able to Deborah. Like Deborah always was relevant eventually. It was just like you had to hold it. I think 4 was a little bit aggressive. Maybe 3 would be fine.
That's cool, man. And then the last thing that's definitely new to our viewers, that Vegeta 8-drop promo. What was the thought process behind that?
So I respect. I think I'd call him a friend or ish. I don't know what the term would be. A guy I see a lot at events. Ivo, I like him, but I respect the fact that he's probably the best hatch player in the world. And if I'm gonna have to play against him every event, I want to have another 8-drop. Just
Yeah.
I don't want I want to have more answers to that kind of like, because if you guys aren't aware, Hatch just stops aggressive players. I can't go wide. I have to commit a bunch of cards. Everything that I want to do, his leader just stops me immediately. And so I get put into the situation where I don't know what to do unless I have sideboard specifically for him. And for a very long time now, I have just always kept Ivo sideboard, and that's really who it's there for. I found it to also be very amazing in the mirror and very amazing in general for like the green matchups. Like I liked playing an 8-drop and just like lowering my opponent's effects. When I originally put it in, I thought it said battle cards and unisons, and that was my intent. And then one of the games, I was getting ready to play it to kill my opponent's unison, and then I charged it instead. When I was like, what to charge? Because I was like, oh nope, does not do what I want it to do. I mean, you still get to, with the leader ability, you still do get to do a 1 neg 15, but I thought it was, a little bit better.
Right.
So
That's still pretty strong. Well, this is a really unique take on the popular Kid Coup strategy. So congratulations on winning once again, Robbie. Do you have any shout outs you would like to give before we close up?
Just shout out to all my opponents. Raymond, I've added a bunch of them. It was honestly really enjoyable to play all my opponents. This felt like an in-person event. I know we're kind of at this point now where there's the same 100 players in the event, so that helps. We're getting to know each other, we play each other a lot more. But it was genuine fun. After the matches, I think we sat for 5 to 10 minutes each game, just talking about it. And like I said, I backpedaled the entire, every single round, even against Android 21. I felt like I was the backpedaler until I started to draw my outs. And it was really cool to see their unique strategies, and it was just fun. This was an event I needed. This gave me a little bit more motivation, before I do the world tour and all that fun stuff. And these are the kind of decks I like to make for these wacky stuff. If you're going to make a list like this, I would say maybe these red yellows don't make the cut, but I do like the Bardock Apes. The Bardock Apes were very cool. So
Yeah.
and yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for your deck profile, Robbie. And from us at Checkmate Fusion to you guys, our watchers, thanks for watching. Catch you guys next time.